chance to live. Pharaoh issued an order that every boy born to the Hebrews shall be thrown in the Nile River. Let the nappy-headed girls live. Leave no child behind. But Moses was a boy that was born with a death sentence over his head. But here his sister Miriam stands as a sentry to watch out for her baby brother. And I wish that more brothers would stop every now and then and thank God for the women that God has placed in their lives, because in many cases, if it don't be for the women, it don't be no us. Now that's bad English, but that's good preaching. If it don't be for Jochebed going against the government, if it don't be for Miriam standing guard on behalf of her baby brother, if it don't be for Pharaoh's daughter, the story of Moses might have ended in a watery grave or as an appetizer for an alligator. We still live in a society that has decreed that certain children should not live. And now I want you to understand something. God punished Egypt because of their culture of death. Because Egypt's culture of death required that every male child born was to die. And when God punished Egypt, he brought 10 plagues down upon them. How many watched Charlton Heston and the 10 Commandments? I know you didn't read it, but at least you watched the 10 Commandments, right? Oh, y'all quiet on me in here now. Amen. Yul Brynner, the bald-head Pharaoh, Charlton, y'all remember that? Dun, dun, dun. My mother know the music, amen. And they had 10 plagues that were brought down upon them. Do you remember what the last plague was? God decreed that every firstborn son of Egypt will die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on the throne to the firstborn of the slave girl who is at her handmill. Egypt decreed death for black boys, and God decreed death for their families as well. Where you going, Brother Swan? There's something about the law of sowing and reaping. You all believe the Bible, don't you? I thought I read somewhere that be not deceived, that God is not mocked. That which a man sow, that shall he also reap. You don't believe me, do you? Shall I take a contemporary 21st century look at what happened? You remember this nation that you live in. God bless America. I can't get no help on the national anthem. Amen. The nation that you live in, amen, decreed that black boys were not fully human. That matter of fact, when they got to arguing about it, the slave state said, hold up, when you do the census record and when you give out congressional seats, you got to count the slaves. They were trying to get more seats in Congress, and so they cut a deal and said, well, we're not going to count them as fully human, so we'll count them as 3/5 of a human being. The same country that you live in that counted us as 3/5 of a human being. Look at what God does when you sow one thing and you reap something else. And now, I just a few years ago, I watched last year or earlier this year, was it Glenn Beck? Y'all don't watch Fox News, right? That's good for you, amen. Stay off of Fox News channel. Glenn Beck and Sarah Palin, who has an IQ of 5. Y'all ain't gonna help me now. I'm preaching, I got the mic, I'm gonna preach it my way. Decided they were going to do a march on Washington. Look at God. God has a sense of humor, baby. See, when you reap the wind, you sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind. And I looked on television laughing, Mother Scott. I was cracking up because I saw a sea, let me look in here, okay, of white folk. Amen. Jenna's the closest thing to it. I guess I can say that. So a sea of white folk in D.C. taking back America. And I thought about it that 4 decades earlier, there was a brother who stood in front of the Lincoln Monument down in Washington, D.C. on August 28, 1963, and he gave a speech called I Have a Dream, and black folk were there trying to get jobs and and they were there trying to be treated equally, and they stood there petitioning a white president that they would have equal rights. And now 4 decades later, white folk are down in Washington, D.C. trying to take back the government from one of them black babies that they said should have died in the Nile River. Isn't it something when things come back around? Moses lived because Jochebed and Pharaoh's daughter never accepted the culture of death in their society. And there are some of us here today that are only here because our mamas would not accept the culture of death in this society. They decided you will not be a statistic. You will not be on drugs. You will not flunk out of school. You will not be hanging out on the corner with your pants hanging down, showing your dirty drawers. You will not. There was some Jochebeds, there were some Pharaoh's daughters in some of our lives who determined that you're going to be better than what society has determined that you would be. And so here's Sister Miriam. Sister Miriam, kind of like Frida. I can imagine her, kind of bossy. You had to send Mama Miriam out there. You couldn't just send any one of the sisters out there, amen, to watch over Moses. And so Frida was out there standing as a sentry for her baby brother. And when she saw the daughter of Pharaoh discover Moses, look at verse 7. You got to get up early in the morning to outthink a black woman. Brothers, I want to tell you, amen, what you think you're getting away with, she already down the road somewhere. Amen. And so Frida ran up. Look at the Bible right there. She ran up and suggested so innocently, shall I go get you a nurse from among the Hebrew women? And when Pharaoh's daughter said yes, Frida went and got Moses' mama to do what she had already been doing for the first 3 months. Moses' mama took him, and the funny part about the story is she got paid. Y'all, somebody should have celebrated right there. She got paid to do what she would have done for free. Moses' mama took him and raised him, and please don't miss that, because he was with his mama and daddy until he grew up. Look at verse 10. When he grew up, his mama brought him to Pharaoh's daughter. So that means there were some things that were instilled in Moses that did not come from the courts of Egypt, but that came from his mama. Yes, sir. Moses lived and became the kind of man that he became because his 2 mothers loved life, because they loved children. Secondly, Moses became the kind of man he was because his mother did everything she could for him. Jochebed hid Moses in order to save his life. Other Hebrew mothers probably hid their children as well, but that very rarely worked. I mean, it's kind of hard to hide a pregnant woman. Am I in the right house? Kind of hard to hide y'all when y'all pregnant. Y'all looking at me funny. Something, I don't want to insult anybody in here, but something happened to y'all when y'all get pregnant. Ankles swell up. Am I in the right house? Y'all eat the whole grocery store? All right, let me leave that alone. They kind of stick out in a crowd. They're usually just so pregnant. And the Egyptians would have been watching, and they would have been waiting for the day when she would no longer be pregnant, and then they would come for her child. So if that's true, how could Jochebed succeed in hiding her child for 3 whole months? I don't know, but if I'd been her, I'd have tried probably putting a pillow up under my dress for a while, but that would have only worked for a certain amount of time. Sooner or later, they would have come for the child. So what was it that she did? How did she save this baby? Well, she decided to get a bit creative. Since Pharaoh wanted her child to be thrown in the river, that's where she put him. But not before she gave her boy an edge. Not before she gave him an advantage in life. She and her husband built a little boat for him, a basket covered with pitch so that it would float, and she put the boat in the bulrushes along the shore of the Nile River.